question is, have the board done well over the last 10 years? Well, they ain't done bad, in my opinion. Right, we had to move, or we had to have a massive development like Spurs, like knock down parts of the local area and, you know, rebuild. You know, knock down the big blocks of flats, you know, that were behind the old chicken run. But, you know, we couldn't afford to do that. We didn't bring enough gate in, so we had to move. And then, you know, they weren't putting any money in. And then at least give them credit for listening to the protests last year and, you know, doing something about it. We bought some good players, but I think it's Pellegrini's just not playing them in the right position right now. You know, or the right formation rather than position. It's the right formation. Haller's good, but the others just ain't hungry enough to get up and support him. So I've said it in previous videos, he's got to be 4-4-2. So I do give him a bit of credit, but then I also say it's really shocking that I've heard that they have loaned money to the club, and then the club, you know, has to pay them back so much money a month, you know, in back for the loan, as well as, you know, they get a wage. It's just criminal. That is criminal. That is really bad. But I suppose that's modern day business. I don't agree with it. I totally don't agree with it. Not at all. You know, it's bad. So it's 50-50 for me, really. They've done pretty good. You know, they're keeping us there mid-table. I mean, if we get relegated, that's it. I think it's good night Josephine for West Ham, because we don't own the ground. If we own the ground, then I feel a bit more secure. But you know, all in all, they ain't doing too bad a job. Let's see how we do after the end of this season. We address this question at the end of this season to see where we finish and see if we do well in the cups. All right, take it easy. All the best. Up the hammers. Come on, you on.
Right, let's talk about David Sullivan and David Gold, since they became official owners of West Ham United in January of 2010. Apologies for the croaky voice, guys. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. There's a lot of phlegm, so if I'm coughing or anything like that, apologies. So in 2010, David Gold and David Sullivan increased their stake in ownership to become 51% owners. There was 50% in January 2010, but they did increase it to 51 a few weeks later, if I remember correctly, and therefore becoming sole majority owners of West Ham United. Now, let's not forget that as far as the background was concerned, financially, the club was in a hell of a state, because the Icelandic consortium was bankrupt because of the Icelandic bank crash. 30% of West Ham was owned by their bank. So that's the reason why we were in so much problems. And the reason why the two Davids took on the £120 million debt that we had at that point. Now, as always happens when there's a new takeover, the first thing to go is the manager. And they got rid of Franco Zola, which I understand. I was angry about at the time. There's a lot of things I was angry about at the time. As we all were, but I can understand it. I get the reasons why they did it. Unfortunately, things didn't exactly go to plan, which was pretty much the blueprint even for West Ham over the next 9 to 10 years under the two Davids. Okay, for example, now whenever there's a position going in West Ham, be it manager or player, it's all over the news. We're linked to every Tom, Dick and Harry. We were linked with a lot of people. Now, we were very, very close to getting Martin O'Neill. Very, very close. And I mean down to the fact that if Karen Brady had kept her mouth shut and hadn't blabbed to Sky Sports that he was on the verge of becoming the next West Ham manager, we would have had him in charge. Would he done a decent job? We will never know. We will never know. We can hypothesize as much as we want, but we will never, ever know. Now, Martin O'Neill found out about this. From what I understand of it, it was very close to the situation where we were with Rafa Benitez, where he was literally in the office negotiating terms or about to be in the office negotiating terms. Well, that was with Raffers, but Martin O'Neill was actually in the office negotiating his contract. Then he found out that Brady had blabbed to Sky Sports, and he went, "No, I'm not having any of this. I don't want to be in charge of this club." Excuse me. And yeah, so he went, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Martin O'Neill is a very, very private man. He doesn't want anything known until he's ready for people to know that, and that's fine. I get it. Big mistake. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2: appointing Avram Grant. Oh, just because he had a decent run with Portsmouth and Chelsea. Aye. But to Grant's credit, we got to the League Cup semi-final against Bristol City, against Birmingham City, and we lost it at the second leg, which is what I want is. But you know, we had a good cup run. We had a good League Cup run. You know, I was happy with that. Very happy. Very, very fortunate to go to both legs. Good performance at home, just about scraped it. Good performance away in the first half, and then absolutely screwed it up in the second half. But that's what it is. Obviously, the ironic thing is we're playing the club that they had previously owned before coming into West Ham. That's what's happened to Birmingham now. That's the thing. But you know, in the January transfer window, we bought in some good players. We bought in Demba Ba. We bought in who else did we bring in? We bought in Obina as well. You know, and a few other good players. We brought some academy players through as well. Freddie Sears, if I remember correctly. Zavon Hines, Junior Stanislav, making a little trickle of waves up at Bournemouth now. Down at Bournemouth now, I should say. Frank Nublet as well. Some good academy players. You know, Jack Collinson as well. You know, and JT, James Tompkins as well. Some, you know, really establishing themselves in that season. It's gonna be, but you know, it's the luck of the fate, and you know, unfortunately, Grant couldn't do any better than Zola did, and we got relegated with a game to go. Which is an awful display at Wigan. Got the last game of the season, beaten 5-0 at home by my second team, Sunderland. Painful to watch, absolutely painful, shocking as well, absolutely shocking. And then, to the owner's credit, we brought in Sam Allardyce. Now, I've got mixed emotions about him, like everybody else does. But you can't deny what he did in his first season. We got rid of, 13, 14 players. Brought in the likes of Vaz Tay. Brought in Sammy Baldock as well, which apparently you can't sing that song anymore because now it's deemed as racist. And it shows you how quickly the world's changed. And you know, we had a good run in this championship. You know, there's a lot of standout memories for that. A lot of standout memories. Brighton at home, for example, that absolute trouncing where Vazte got his hat trick. The night before was a one I'll never forget either. And if you're watching, she knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, a very, very good weekend all round for me. Winston Reid's header against Millwall, where the ironic thing is I picked up I had a throat injury. That's right, throat infection from that game. And I'm talking about that game 9 and a half years later, and I've got a gravelly voice. There's the irony. And you know, and so you know, we were on the verge of automatic promotion. Screwed it in the West Ham way. Which, by the way, Allardyce has no clue what the West Ham way is. Pissed a lot of people off when he came in, saying, "What is the West Ham way? Playing beautiful football and losing." He had a point at that point because that's what we were trying to do. We got relegated. I don't agree with him, but he had a point. But as I say, well then we got to Wembley in the playoff final, narrowly beaten Blackpool. Great day out. That was great fun. Should have done it the easy way, but we ended up doing it the hard way as always. Not to say that winning automatic promotion of the first or second is an easy way, but all of a sudden the tactics seem to have changed, and so everybody was criticising the board, saying that they wanted the payday by going through the playoffs. So, but yeah, I get the point. I get it. Yeah, I was one of those people. I made some mistakes in 2010 myself. When we got relegated, I created my personal Twitter account just to blast Carlton Cole for not playing well enough that got us relegated. Hands up to that. Big mistake from my point, because Cole obviously went on to be an absolute legend for the club. And I don't use legend all that often. But, we got back in the first time of asking even. So, good decision from Allardyce. Good players brought in. Not the best of tactics. But, as Ginger Collins said last weekend, Allardyce wasn't there to win beautifully. He was there to win games. And he did. He got us up. Kept us up. Gave a very good stability. No matter what you want. He pissed a lot of us off. Brought a very good stability to the club. Brought the defensive mind back that we were lacking for so many years. Yes, all right, some of the games weren't exactly entertaining or beautiful to watch, but he kept us up. He got in even then he brought in some good players like Alex Song, for example. Then the tide turned, and he ran out of ideas, as all managers do. Allardyce left at the end of his contract with his very arrogant interview with Sky Sports, saying when he was asked we're talking about his contract wasn't being renewed at the end of the season, he said to the bloke, "Yeah, I know," which is true. Of course he knew. Of course he knew about it. But technically we can say that we've had a manager that went on to have a 100% record with England. But yeah, and then we brought in Bilic, who had a very, very tough time ahead of him. He brought in some great players. The Frenchman who we won't talk about. But as I say, is so everything in mind. Yes, we've blasted the board for not buying the right amount of players that we all think we needed, not spending enough money. They're in a no-win situation. They were hell-bent on getting us to the London Stadium, and I understand the thinking behind it. I don't agree with it. Never have done. It's not a football stadium, and 3 seasons later, it still isn't a football stadium. It's a multi-events purpose stadium. But if you want to watch West Ham at home, you've got no choice but to go there. No choice, unless you want to watch it on telly. But yeah, you've got no choice. So, as I say, they've made a lot of mistakes. They've made some good decisions as well, which I'm hoping I've been able to, because we can't talk. This is an hour-long subject in itself. But I'm hoping you guys agree with what I've said. That is the highlights of over the last 10 years, 9 and 3/4 years. So it's interesting. That they've come on some massive criticism lately. And the end of the Moyes era, shall we say? They brought in a very good manager. Again, they brought in some very good players over the last couple of years. Not perfect, not all, and they spent way too much money in the first season we moved. Made absolutely no difference. Second season, spent more wisely. This season, in the January transfer, again spent more wisely, sold more wisely. I'm not an advocate of them in any shape or form, but I have to look at it on both sides. They've made some mistakes and they've made some brilliant decisions at the same point. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the two Davids. I might actually do a video on the channel myself, going into more depth, but I don't want to take up too much more of the time. So enjoy it, guys.
This is the 10-year anniversary of David Gold and David Sullivan owning the club. Buying the club from our previous owners, Mr. Magnussen and Mr. Goodmanson after their unfortunate bankruptcy in 2010, of course. The question for the week is, have Gold and Sullivan done a good job in the last decade? They've owned us, and I can't lie, my feelings about this are very mixed, because in one way they've done a brilliant job. Yes, we went through the 1 year in the championship in 10-11 season, but other than that, they've done a brilliant job to keep us up. We've been our Premier League status is we've been a Premier League club for 9 years now, without a single relegation. But obviously you can't go around the lies regarding the stadium move with the stand situation, especially, and the broken promises which weren't delivered, and they don't look like they will be delivered anytime soon. Also the fact that yes, we got Pellegrini. Yes, they've spent a lot of money on Pellegrini's transfers, but looking at other clubs that we're trying to battle for Europe, we're just not spending enough, and it looks like the board don't want to spend more than they have to, basically lying to us, filling us with promises over Europe, and the club wanting to be in Europe for more than 1 year, and they obviously are not trying hard enough to deliver all the promises. So in my eyes, I'm not sure if they've done a good job so far, at least, because also they apparently don't want to sell the club. So yeah, we'll see how that goes with potentially later David Sullivan's son, or both sons, potentially owning the club. So yeah, that's my take on it. And if I was meant to say my final answer, I'd say that yes, they did a good job. They brought our value massively from and we're a much bigger club than we were when they were taking over. So yeah.